I used to believe there was nothing unusual about the bond I shared with my twin brother. From the moment we were born, it seemed only natural that our lives would twist around each other like vines, inseparable and instinctively close. We shared a crib, toys, dreams, and later, fears we never dared admit aloud. People often said they envied our connection, calling it rare, precious. I believed them even as I began to sense something lurking beneath it, something unspoken. As we grew older, small differences set us apart from the outside world, but not from each other. Where I hesitated, he charged forward. Where I doubted, he believed. We balanced each other perfectly, a seamless rhythm. And yet, in private moments, I sometimes caught myself wondering why a touch of his hand lingered longer than it should, or why his gaze would sometimes hold mine with a strange, searching intensity. I brushed these thoughts aside easily then. After all, wasn't it normal for twins to feel things more deeply? We moved into a small apartment after college, drawn together by convenience and habit. It was modest, cracked tiles in the kitchen, a bathroom barely wide enough for two. But it felt safe. It felt like ours. Sharing the space was never a problem. We respected each other's boundaries, at least on the surface. But recently, the air between us had shifted, charged with a quiet tension neither of us dared name. Arguments sparked over trivial things: who forgot to replace the toilet paper, who left dishes unwashed. They never mattered, but each one left a small crack in the fragile wall we'd built. That night, the rain hammered against the windows, wild and relentless, drowning the city's usual hum in a heavy, pounding rhythm. We had fought over something stupid, as always. I couldn't even remember what, only the bitterness in his voice and the way my chest tightened in response, seeking space. I retreated to the bathroom, locking the door behind me with a shaky hand. The tiny room offered no real refuge. My reflection stared back at me from the mirror, pale and weary. I splashed water on my face, trying to steady my breathing, but the knock came sooner than I expected. Soft, hesitant, then his voice, low and hoarse. "Let me in." I hesitated, fingers trembling against the doorknob. Every instinct told me to stay silent, to draw a line. Instead, I unlocked the door. He stepped in, the scent of rain clinging to him, his hair dripping onto the cracked tiles. For a moment, we just stood there, inches apart, breathing the same damp, heavy air. Neither spoke, neither moved, yet somehow everything shifted in that silence. It wasn't the first time we shared a space this small, but it was the first time. The air between us felt electric, alive with something dangerous and undeniable, and deep down I knew nothing would ever be the same after this. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The rain outside pressed against the apartment like a living thing, its rhythm matching the thudding in my chest. His eyes found mine, unguarded, uncertain, and for the first time in my life, I didn't know what he was thinking. The bathroom felt impossibly small, the air thick and charged. I turned away, pretending to busy myself with the faucet, but my hands shook as they fumbled with the handle. I heard the soft scuff of his shoes against the tile as he shifted closer, and I hated how my body reacted, tense, hyper-aware, waiting for something I couldn't name. "You don't have to shut me out," he said, voice rough around the edges. I stared at the sink, willing myself to stay composed. "I'm not." It was a lie so thin it crumbled the moment it left my mouth. He moved closer, so close I could feel the heat of him against my back. I caught his reflection in the mirror, his face drawn tight with emotion, his hands clenching and unclenching at his sides as if struggling against himself. "I hate fighting with you," he murmured, and the rawness in his voice unraveled something in me. Without thinking, I turned, and suddenly he was right there, inches away, close enough to count every rain-slicked lash framing his stormy eyes. I opened my mouth to speak, to apologize, to push him away, I'm not sure which, but the words caught somewhere between my throat and my heart. His hand found my wrist, tentative but firm. The touch was gentle, grounding, yet it sent a jolt through me that left me reeling. He seemed just as shaken, his breath hitching audibly. For a second, we simply stood like that, tethered by a single point of contact, the rest of the world fading to nothing. Slowly, he raised his other hand, brushing a wet strand of hair from my forehead. It was a small gesture, almost innocent, yet it felt unbearably intimate. My skin burned under his touch, and for the first time, I couldn't pretend I didn't feel it too. That dangerous pull toward him, fierce and frightening. I should have stepped back. I should have said something, anything to break whatever spell had woven itself between us. Instead, I found myself leaning into him, drawn by a force older and stronger than logic. Our foreheads touched lightly, a fragile connection that stole the breath from my lungs. His hand slid from my wrist to my fingers, interlacing them with a tenderness that shattered whatever defenses I had left. In that fragile silence, we made an unspoken promise, one we both knew we had no right to make. The bathroom door, once a barrier between us and the outside world, now felt like the last fragile thing keeping reality at bay. And somewhere deep inside, I realized the line we had tiptoed along all our lives had already been crossed. Sleep didn't come easily that night. I lay awake, staring at the cracks in the ceiling, replaying every second of what had happened, or nearly happened, between us. My skin still tingled where his fingers had touched mine, and no matter how tightly I closed my eyes, I could still feel the warmth of his forehead against mine. It should have been a simple moment of comfort between brothers. It should have been harmless. But it wasn't. Not anymore. Guilt gnawed at me, heavy and unrelenting. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, that we were just too close, that the storm outside and the fight had clouded our judgment. But the more I told myself that, the less I believed it. Deep down, I knew the truth. Something inside me had shifted, something that couldn't be undone. When the first pale light of morning filtered through the curtains, I forced myself out of bed. The apartment was silent, heavy with the kind of tension that no words could fix. I found him in the kitchen, back turned to me, pretending to scroll through his phone. For a moment, I just watched him, studying the familiar lines of his shoulders, the way he shifted his weight from one foot to the other. It should have been comforting. It had always been comforting, but now it only made my chest ache. He glanced up, and our eyes met. The look he gave me was casual, easy, as if nothing had happened, as if the entire world hadn't tilted on its axis in the span of a heartbeat. "Coffee?" he asked, voice light, almost too light. I nodded, unable to find my voice. I wanted to believe he felt nothing, that maybe it was just me who was drowning in confusion. But even in his casual smile, I saw it. The same guarded panic, the same aching pull he was trying so hard to bury. We went through the motions of the morning like strangers, sharing a space they no longer understood. The silence between us wasn't angry or cold, it was worse. It was heavy with all the things we couldn't say. Every brush of hands, every stolen glance, fed the quiet chaos growing inside me. I told myself I just needed space. That if I could pull away, if I could put enough distance between us, everything would settle back into place. So I started avoiding him, staying late at work, spending hours pretending to run errands, locking myself away behind the thin barrier of my bedroom door. But no matter how far I ran, the memory of that night followed me, haunting my steps, slipping beneath my skin. And every time I looked at him, I could see it written plainly across his face. He wasn't ready to let me go. Neither, if I was honest, was I. Days stretched into weeks, and the distance between us grew heavier, sharper, until it felt like a wall we had both helped build, but neither of us knew how to tear down. I told myself it was for the best, that some things were better left untouched, unspoken, but inside, the ache of it gnawed at me, carving hollow spaces where certainty used to live. One evening, as the sun bled across the sky in shades of fire and gold, he found me sitting alone on the apartment balcony, legs pulled to my chest, pretending to watch the city lights blink into life. For a while, he said nothing, simply leaning against the doorway, hands buried deep in the pockets of his jeans. I could feel his gaze pressing against my back, heavy with everything we had tried so hard to deny. "You're not fooling anyone, you know," he said quietly. I didn't turn around. "I don't know what you're talking about." The words tasted bitter on my tongue, a lie so transparent it barely deserved to be spoken. He crossed the small space between us in 3 slow steps and dropped down beside me, close enough that our knees brushed. I stiffened, but he made no move to close the distance further. He just sat there breathing the same thick, uncertain air. "I miss you," he said so softly it almost broke me. "The real you." Something inside me cracked then, a deep, hidden fault line giving way. I looked at him, really looked, and saw the mirror of my own pain etched into every line of his face. The struggle, the longing, the fear. "I don't know how to fix this," I whispered, voice shaking. He smiled sadly, a fleeting thing, full of everything we had lost and everything we still might lose. "Maybe it's not about fixing it," he said. "Maybe it's just accepting it." The idea terrified me. Acceptance meant acknowledging the depth of what we felt, of what we risked by letting it exist. Acceptance meant surrendering to a truth that could unravel everything, our bond, our history, our very idea of who we were. Yet, sitting there under a sky smeared with dying light, it didn't seem as impossible as it once had. It just seemed inevitable. Tentatively, I reached out, letting my fingers brush against his. He didn't pull away. Instead, he turned his hand palm up, lacing his fingers through mine the way he had that night in the bathroom, as if no time had passed, as if no walls had ever risen between us. We sat there in silence, 2 hearts beating in fragile, imperfect rhythm, neither needing to speak the words that hung between us. Words like forgiveness, words like love, words like forever. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, some broken things weren't meant to be fixed. They were meant to be remade, stronger at the broken places.